Hello, dear listener, and welcome. As the day draws to a close, and the world outside begins to hush its busy murmur, let us settle into this quiet space together. Breathe softly now, allowing your shoulders to relax, your jaw to loosen, and your mind to drift gently, like a leaf upon a still pond. Tonight, we will journey into a profound story, one that unfolds within each of us, a tale of subtle, persistent change, the story of recent human evolution. It's a story that often surprises us, for a common belief, deeply ingrained, suggests that we, Homo sapiens, have reached a kind of evolutionary endpoint. We imagine our distant ancestors, hunched and struggling, slowly transforming, until finally, we emerged, fully formed, the finished article. But the quiet truth, dear friend, is far more intricate, far more dynamic. We are not a fixed point in time, we are a river, ever flowing, ever changing. Indeed, contrary to that popular belief, not only are humans still evolving, but the pace of our evolution, especially since that pivotal moment of the dawn of agriculture, has actually accelerated. Imagine that for a moment. We are changing faster than ever before. It's a whisper from our very cells, a gentle hum beneath the surface of our conscious lives, telling us of a continuous, living adaptation. What does it truly mean for us to be evolving? It speaks of tiny, incremental shifts, quiet adjustments within our genetic tapestry. It encompasses what scientists refer to as evolutionary adaptation, the way our bodies and minds subtly attune themselves to the world around us. It involves the gentle yet powerful currents of sexual selection, where traits that are perceived as attractive or beneficial for mating slowly spread through a population, and the grand, undeniable force of natural selection, where those traits that offer a survival advantage in a particular environment are favored. And then there's genetic drift, a more random, unpredictable element, like the soft swirling of dust motes in a beam of moonlight, where allele frequencies can change by pure chance, especially in smaller, isolated groups. All these forces, intertwined, are sculpting us still, shaping Homo sapiens populations since our earliest ancestors embarked on their great dispersal in the Middle Paleolithic, perhaps some 50,000 years ago. Now, consider the role of something so uniquely human, our culture. This vast, intricate web of traditions, technologies, beliefs, and social structures that we have woven around ourselves. It has been proposed, quite profoundly, that human culture itself acts as a selective force in our ongoing evolution, almost as if the stories we tell, the tools we craft, the societies we build, are themselves influencing the very fabric of our being. Think of it, if a cultural practice, like cooking food, makes certain nutrients more accessible, it could subtly favor genes that better metabolize those cooked foods. If the development of complex language allows for better cooperation and survival, then genes supporting language might flourish. It's a fascinating, almost poetic idea, isn't it? A silent dialogue between our genes and our ingenuity. While this idea is still debated, still gently explored by researchers, it opens up a beautiful philosophical question. Where does nature end and nurture begin, when nurture itself might be shaping nature? Perhaps they are not separate at all, but two threads in a single, continuous weave. In our modern age, we possess extraordinary tools to peer into these subtle changes. With sufficiently large datasets, vast repositories of genetic information, and sophisticated research methods, scientists can now study the changes in the frequency of a particular allele, a specific variant of a gene, occurring in even a tiny subset of the population. They can observe these shifts over what, in evolutionary terms, is an incredibly short span, a single lifetime. Imagine, dear listener, being able to witness the very beginning of an evolutionary whisper, almost in real time. It's like watching a single drop of dye gently diffuse through clear water, knowing that over generations, it will color the entire vessel. We can also compare our own genes with those of other species, tracing the diverging paths of life through the ages. By doing so, geneticists can determine whether a particular gene is rapidly evolving in humans alone, setting us apart in subtle yet significant ways. Let's take a moment with one such compelling example. While the vast majority of our human DNA, on average, shares a remarkable 98% identity with that of our chimpanzee relatives, a testament to our shared lineage, there are crucial areas where this similarity drops dramatically. One such region is known as Human Accelerated Region 1, or HAR1. This particular segment of our genome is deeply involved in the development of the brain, our most complex and defining organ. Yet, when compared to chimpanzee DNA, HAR1 is only about 85% similar. Think of the profound implications of that difference. In the grand tapestry of our genetic code, a mere 15% divergence in this vital region could hold some of the keys to the intricate complexity of the human mind, to our capacity for abstract thought, for language, for consciousness itself. It's a quiet testament to the powerful, accelerating forces that shaped our unique path. Our journey through recent human evolution truly began to accelerate after a series of profound historical migrations. Following the ancient peopling of Africa, which occurred roughly 130,000 years ago, came the more recent out of Africa expansion. This great odyssey saw our ancestors begin to move out of the African continent, spreading across the globe, some 70,000 to 50,000 years ago. As these pioneering groups ventured forth, they often became geographically isolated for tens of thousands of years. Imagine small bands of early humans, settling in new lands, separated by vast oceans, towering mountains, or inhospitable deserts. In these isolated pockets, their genes began to diverge, quietly responding to their unique environments, until the early modern age of discovery began to weave these disparate threads back together. This isolation, combined with something else we will explore in a moment, a fascinating phenomenon called archaic admixture, has resulted in the relatively significant genetic variation we see among human populations today. It's like different currents flowing from the same source, each picking up unique minerals and textures as they carve their own paths, before eventually merging downstream. The selection pressures, the environmental challenges that shaped these early populations, were particularly severe in certain times and places. For those hardy populations affected by the chilling embrace of the last glacial maximum, the LGM, in Eurasia, a period of intense cold and vast ice sheets, survival itself was a daily struggle. Genes that conferred resistance to cold, or enabled efficient foraging in harsh landscapes, would have been silently favored. Later, with the advent of the Neolithic, or New Stone Age, came the revolutionary shift to sedentary farming. This new way of life brought new pressures, a reliance on specific crops, the close proximity to animals, and the emergence of denser communities. All these factors created a fertile ground for new adaptations, new whispers in the genetic code. How do these changes manifest at the deepest level? Through what scientists call single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs, pronounced SNPs. Imagine our genetic code as a very long, intricate book. A SNP is like a tiny typo, a mutation of a single genetic letter in an allele. When this tiny change spreads across a population, and if it occurs in the functional parts of the genome, it can potentially modify virtually any conceivable trait. From something as visible as our height or the color of our eyes to more subtle, internal characteristics like our susceptibility to diabetes, or even conditions like schizophrenia. It's a powerful reminder that profound changes can spring from the most minute alterations. Now, only about 2% of the vast expanse of the human genome actually codes for proteins, the building blocks and workers of our bodies. A slightly larger fraction is involved in regulating these genes, acting like switches and dimmers, controlling when and where genes are turned on or off. The remainder, the vast majority of our genetic material, still has no known function. It's a grand mystery, a silent library within us, waiting for future generations to unlock its secrets. If an environment remains stable, a beneficial mutation, a good typo, will slowly, gracefully spread throughout the local population over many generations, like a gentle ripple expanding across a pond. Eventually, it can become a dominant trait, a common thread in the genetic fabric of that community. An extremely beneficial allele, one that offers a significant advantage, could become ubiquitous in a population in as little as a few centuries. Think of how quickly such a strong advantage could sweep through a group. Those alleles that are less advantageous, but still helpful, typically take millennia to become widespread, a much slower, more patient dance through time. And so, what are some of these fascinating traits that have emerged relatively recently in our human story? The list is a testament to our ongoing adaptability. Consider the quiet resilience of populations who developed the ability to free dive for long periods, their bodies adapting to the demands of the deep. Or the profound changes in people living in high altitudes, where oxygen concentrations are low, their blood and lungs subtly re-engineered over generations to thrive in thinner air. We see adaptations related to our struggles with disease, such as developing resistance to contagious diseases like malaria, a relentless evolutionary arms race between pathogen and host. Observe the emergence of light skin and blue eyes in populations that migrated to northern latitudes, perhaps an adaptation to absorb more sunlight for vitamin D production. Think of lactase persistence, the ability to digest milk after weaning, a powerful advantage in societies that adopted dairying, allowing adults to tap into a rich new food source. Other recent changes include lower blood pressure and cholesterol levels in some populations, a subtle buffering against the challenges of modern diets and lifestyles. There's the curious retention of the median artery in some individuals, an artery that typically disappears before birth but persists in others. We see reduced prevalence of Alzheimer's disease and lower susceptibility to diabetes in certain genetic profiles, quiet victories against the ailments of aging and modernity. There are even whispers of genetic longevity, the blueprint for a longer, healthier life slowly emerging. And a truly intriguing development, shrinking brain sizes. While our brains have grown immensely over our evolutionary history, they seem to have slightly reduced in volume over recent millennia, a puzzle still being carefully unraveled, perhaps reflecting greater efficiency or a different organization of neural networks. And finally, subtle changes in the timing of menarche, the first menstruation, and menopause, the cessation of menstruation, speak to the deep interplay between our biology and our environment. Each of these traits is a quiet testament to the fact that we are still, in every sense, a species in motion. Now, let us turn our gaze to an even deeper layer of our genetic past, to a story that intertwines with our own in ways both surprising and profound, the tale of archaic admixture. Genetic evidence, like ancient whispers carried on the wind, suggests that a species dubbed Homo heidelbergensis holds a special place in our lineage. This ancient group is believed to be the last common ancestors shared by three distinct branches of the human family tree, the Neanderthals, the Denisovans, and ourselves, Homo sapiens. Imagine this shared ancestor living between 600,000 and 750,000 years ago, perhaps in the sun-drenched landscapes of Africa or the fertile valleys of Europe. From this common stock, members of Homo heidelbergensis embarked on their own migrations. Some moved throughout Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, and in the western regions of Asia and Europe, they gradually evolved into the robust and resilient Neanderthals, a species that would come to define the ancient European landscape for hundreds of thousands of years. Another group ventured further east, into the vast, mysterious expanses of Asia, evolving into the enigmatic Denisovans. We know them primarily from the fragments of bone discovered in the Denisova cave in Russia, a testament to how even the smallest clues can unlock a grand narrative. And in Africa, the ancestral home, members of this same ancient group eventually became what we recognize as anatomically modern humans, our direct ancestors. Yet, despite these vast migrations and the long periods of geographical isolation that separated these three descendant groups of Homo heidelbergensis, their paths were destined to cross again. After millennia of living apart, of quietly adapting to their distinct environments, these ancient relatives later met, and in encounters that we can only imagine, they interbred. Archaeological research paints a vivid picture of these ancient encounters. As prehistoric humans, our direct ancestors slowly swept across Europe some 45,000 years ago, bringing with them new tools and new ways of life. The Neanderthals, who had called that continent home for so long, eventually went extinct. It was a gradual fading, a quiet departure from the stage of life. Even so, the genetic evidence whispers of their lingering presence within us. There is undeniable evidence of interbreeding between these two groups as humans expanded their presence across the continent. Early prehistoric humans carried a significant amount of Neanderthal DNA. Perhaps between 3% and 6% of their genome was a direct legacy from their ancient cousins. But here's where the story takes another fascinating turn. Modern humans, you and I, dear listener, on average, carry only about 2% Neanderthal DNA. This subtle reduction, this quiet sifting of genes over millennia, seems to suggest a selective pressure against certain Neanderthal-derived traits. It's as if evolution, in its patient wisdom, was subtly favoring our own genetic predispositions. For instance, consider the neighborhood of the gene FOXP2, a gene profoundly affecting speech and language, capabilities central to our human experience. This region shows no signs of Neanderthal inheritance whatsoever. It suggests that while some Neanderthal genes might have offered advantages, particularly in adapting to cold climates or resisting certain diseases, others, perhaps those that might have interfered with our uniquely human capacities like complex language, were gradually weeded out by the slow, persistent hand of natural selection. The story of introgression, the movement of genetic variants from one species into another through hybridization, becomes even more nuanced when we look at different human populations today. The distribution of genetic variants acquired from Neanderthal admixture differs between Europeans and East Asians, for example. This difference subtly points to variations in selective pressures acting on these distinct populations. While East Asians inherit slightly more Neanderthal DNA than Europeans, the crucial point is that East Asians, South Asians, Australo-Melanesians, Native Americans, and Europeans all share some Neanderthal DNA. This widespread presence suggests that the initial hybridization, the ancient mingling, likely occurred between Neanderthals and the common ancestors of all these groups as the why we're moving out of Africa, a single pivotal moment where our lineages gently intertwined. However, the differences in the proportion and specific regions of Neanderthal DNA in East Asians compared to other Eurasians also hint at the possibility of separate hybridization events. Perhaps our ancestors met Neanderthals at different times and in different places, leading to distinct genetic legacies in various populations. The ability to uncover these ancient genetic connections is a relatively recent marvel of scientific endeavor. Following the groundbreaking genome sequencing of 3 Vindige Neanderthals, from a cave in Croatia, a draft sequence of the entire Neanderthal genome was published. This remarkable achievement opened a window into the very essence of our ancient cousins, allowing us to compare their genetic blueprints with our own and to trace the faint echoes of their lives within our own cells. It's like finding an ancient, partially faded letter, and painstakingly piecing together its words to understand a conversation held across countless generations. And so, dear friend, as we gently drift towards the realm of sleep, let this profound story of recent human evolution settle softly in your mind. We are not static beings, but part of a grand, unfolding narrative, continually adapting, continually shaped by the world and by our own choices. From the minute changes in a single gene to the echoes of ancient encounters with our long-lost relatives, every breath, every heartbeat, is a continuation of this extraordinary journey. May you find comfort and wonder in the knowledge that you are a living, evolving testament to the timeless dance of life. Rest now, with the quiet understanding that the story of humanity is far from over. It continues within you, a gentle current flowing through your very being, carrying the whispers of the past into the promise of tomorrow. Sleep well, knowing that you are part of something vast, ancient, and endlessly beautiful. Good night.